Especially as you pointed out throughout the evening, Justin, all the tarps, all the projectiles, all the debris sitting around, it just becomes even worse. Even though it's not going to be as strong as Laura, we've got a lot of hours ahead of us, including here in Scott. Now, we're just off to the west of Lafayette. We're about an hour to the east of Lake Charles. And I want to bring in Brittany Crooks, who is from Scott. And Brittany, first let's talk about Laura because of your location here. You were really concerned, but you got through this area. In this area, you got through this storm, the first one, Laura, in pretty good shape.
Yeah, we were okay. We had minimal damage. We lost electricity for a little bit, but we were way better off than some of our neighbors down I-10.
And what is your concern for Delta coming in tomorrow afternoon, tomorrow night? We could get wind gusts 60, 70 miles an hour, another 6 inches of rain. Anything different than how you felt when you came into Laura 6 weeks ago?
I think if anything, I feel like we're all a little more concerned because we saw anything can happen at any minute. So we're preparing for the worst and hoping for the best, just cautiously optimistic, and we're going to keep on pushing like we always have.
Yeah, it's been a tough year in Louisiana, and you've got friends and family in Lake Charles that have left again. Tell us a little bit about the background of what's going on with those folks.
Yeah, so we have friends and family in Lake Charles, and they still have tarps on their roofs. Mm-hmm. They still are wheeling from Laura, and they're having to evacuate again for this storm because their homes just can't withstand what's about to happen. It's not safe. So we're really worried about them. But again, Louisiana strong. We're going to push through. We're going to survive. That's what we do.
Okay, we appreciate you joining us tonight. Good luck here, and we hope for the best for your friends and family over in Lake Charles. Now, some of them are going, what, over to Texas? Are they coming this way?
Most people are going to Texas, but it was really hard to cross the border. There was a long wait, lots of traffic, so right. A lot of people were going north towards Shreveport.
Gotcha.
Just listening to what our local weathermen are saying and trying to make the best decisions.
Okay, well, thanks again for joining us. And Justin Michaels, you heard that from Brittany Crooks here in Scott, that she's got friends and family that are trying to get into Texas. And we've been showing I-10 throughout the evening. You showed it very nicely today during the daylight hours. There's been a big backup westbound. I know the backup earlier was because of an accident on the west side of town, on the east side of town, rather, people going westbound. So that's been a real problem, getting across the Sabine River into Texas and out of harm's way. And as Brittany just mentioned, some folks are heading north to Shreveport. And speaking of heading north, I just checked. Alexandria has already had nearly 3 inches of rain, and we've got a lot more to come. That's another part of the story in this part of Louisiana. We may not get the strongest wind gust this far away from the center. It is going to come in and likely weaken some, and then weaken as it goes through the state. Remember, Laura was 145 miles an hour when it landfalled down on the coast there south of Lake Charles. So we've got a weaker storm. That's a good thing. And it is moving faster, unlike Sally, which came in at about 2 to 3 miles an hour. So the rainfall totals are going to be, the top totals are going to be cut at least in half. We may get a few 8 to 10 inch totals, but generally we're speaking 4 to 6 inches. And we do have the flash flood watch kicking in late tonight through Saturday morning for this part of Louisiana. Justin, good job out there accentuating what they've been through in Lake Charles and what they're about to go through as the cleanup continues 6 weeks later.
Yeah, it's amazing, Mike.
Got a little rescue deal going on right there. We've got 3 rescue dogs rescuing pets, and in a situation like this, you know, you get into an aftermath situation. We've seen this with tornadoes and with hurricanes where pets are roaming around because they can't find their owners. So hopefully we'll get that cat reunited with her owner. Meanwhile, here in Scott, let's put this in perspective. We're just about 15 minutes to the west of downtown Lafayette. We're right on Interstate 10, and we're about an hour from Justin. But it made a big difference with Laura 6 weeks ago. They had some wind here. They had some power outages. Basically, the power outages were less than a day. So a big difference than Laura, where some of the power outages continue. Most of those were on within about 2 or 3 weeks. That's still a long time to be without power in the heat of late summer and early fall. The other difference here is they had limited damage as far as trees, so that cut down on the power outages. But we've got Sarah LeBlanc, who is from Lafayette. We're going to talk to her right now. And you went through Laura here. Trepidation with this one. because of what you saw and what your family's experienced in Lake Charles?
Yes, definitely. I think it's kind of scary for us here in Lafayette because the storm seems to be coming more our way. And we saw what happened just a month ago, I think, or a little over that with Laura. And my family actually was in Lake Charles. Well, they evacuated over here, but my aunt had to gut her whole house, so she's actually staying with my parents about 3 miles down the road. So I just can't imagine, you know, what's going to happen with all these families in Lake Charles who are just starting to get over all of this and to have more weather come in. So.
It's troubling. It's been a tough year in Louisiana. Tomorrow we could tie the record with 4 landfalls in the state this season. Now you've got your aunt and your cousins over here. What's their timetable? Did they have any idea when they can get back in their house?
Yeah, I know everybody in Lake Charles is struggling, so it's trying to find workers to put roofs on and go through the whole process. I would say 6 months or more, probably.
How is she doing emotionally?
Emotionally, so that's really been the interesting part about it. You know, when you see her starting to break down crying because the house that she has raised her whole family in is all torn apart. And to know that this kind of storm is on its way to us again, it really has an effect on people, and I don't think people really realize the impact that Mother Nature has on people's lives.
Yeah, when you go through it, it puts it in a whole different perspective, and now you're dealing with family members who can't get back to their house, and we do appreciate you joining us tonight, and give our best to your aunt and your cousins, and hopefully she's back in the house sooner rather than later.
Thank
Sarah
you.
LeBlanc from Lafayette. Dr. Knabb, again, a tough year in Louisiana, a tough year on the U.S. coastline. If we have a landfall tomorrow, that's going to be 10 tropical storms and hurricanes. We had expected a busy year, but I guess even you, as being the former National Hurricane Center director, when you expect a busy season, you really hope it doesn't turn out that way, and to get into October and we're already deep into the Greek alphabet, just amazing.
Yeah, and of those 10 named storms that we're going to have come ashore after this one, 5 of them hurricane.
Yeah, you have to make that decision. Are you going to evacuate or not? They can't force you. And we've seen this time and time again where some folks want to stay behind. They did that with Laura, and I bet a lot of those will never do that again because Laura came in as a Cat 4, 145-mile-an-hour winds. The saving grace here with this one is the fact that we're not expecting it to be nearly as strong, and the center is likely to go just to the east of Lake Charles. That saves you a little bit on the surge. As far as radar goes, right now we're still getting some pretty good rain inland, well ahead of Delta, but this is going to pre-saturate the ground. We've got a lot more rain to come in. You can see the heavy rain area near Jackson, Alexandria, Louisiana. It's had over 3 inches of rain. It's all gravitating north. And then you look south and east of Galveston. That's some of the leading bands of Delta. So this is all coming in. We've got a flood watch, flash flood watch up here from late tonight through Saturday morning. Some areas may get 6 to 10 inches of rain. And along with the wind, that gets trees down on power lines, and we're likely going to have a lot of power outages. Not expecting it to be as significant as Laura as far as the sheer numbers. And hopefully we'll get the power back on. Some folks in Lake Charles still don't have power on, and many were without power for 2 to 3 weeks. We spoke to Brittany Crooks earlier, right here in Scott. She's from the area, and asked her about her concerns. She went through Laura, and she's about to go through Delta here in Lafayette in this area.
I think if anything, I feel like we're all a little more concerned because we saw anything can happen at any minute. So we're preparing for the worst and hoping for the best, just cautiously optimistic, and we're going to keep on pushing like we always have.
And Brittany has friends and family in Lake Charles. Some of them have evacuated into Texas along with many others because there are so many blue tarps over there. They just wanted to get out of harm's way. And Justin, I believe I heard the mayor say earlier he thinks more people left town this time than they did with Laura, which is certainly a test to the fact of how much damage there is and how many folks still really can't live their life as a would like to in their homes because of those blue tarps. And again, I mentioned earlier, Justin, the impact of the wind on these tarps. We talked to a gentleman earlier, and it's really a function of how many nails you put in that tarp. Sure. If it's loose, the wind will come up under the tarp and can rip it off, and then you have water coming into the house. So we'll see how that turns out. But easily we could see hurricane-force wind gust about this time tomorrow, maybe a little bit earlier, certainly, in the Lake Charles area.
Yeah, it's a scary. It is everywhere. It doesn't matter what street you turn on in this town, you find enormous piles of debris.
No, Jessica, I can tell you, they were far enough off to the east. We're about an hour east of you on I-10, and there's no debris. They had some trees knocked down, some power outages. Let's bring in Paul BOUDREAUX, who's a teacher, biology teacher at Lafayette High School?
Yes, sir, Lafayette High School.
And we were just talking about what you went through with Laura, which compared to Lake Charles was just a drop in the bucket.
Very minimal. Lots of rain, sideways rain, some wind, you know, a couple trees here and there, but nothing too major.
Oh, and speaking of rain.
Yeah, it's coming down, isn't it?
Well, I'll put my hood up and you'll be okay, right?
I'll live.
Okay, you'll be okay. Let's talk about going into this one, because Laura basically untouched here, and Scott, we're just on the west side of Lafayette.
Yes.
What are your concerns now after going through Laura and seeing what happened in Lake Charles, and now with Delta coming in and expected to track a little bit closer, but not as strong as Laura by far?
Right. You know, and having that closer fear, definitely the wind damage is what I'm nervous about, having more trees down, loss of power. This time I actually taped up the windows, just, you know, out of more precautions, kind of expecting more power outage than last time, making sure the family is safe around here as well.
And talk about your friends and family over in Lake Charles, what they've been through and what they've done ahead of Delta.
Yeah, most of them have left. Virtually all of them have left. I had some teacher friends out that way. They're all headed up to the Dallas area, some as far as Oklahoma. And I even have some teacher friends here that went up to Little Rock and Eureka Springs area in Arkansas. So I think Laura impacted us enough to make a pretty big decision to leave.
Yeah, so some of them wrote it out. I guess a lot of them wrote it out.
Right.
And we heard from the mayor of the mayor of Lake Charles earlier that he thinks more people left ahead of this one versus Laura.
Yeah, I think people are taking it a little bit more serious, considering everything is still not patched and repaired. Just to think about more wind, more rain, more damage coming through, it's hard to believe.
Yeah, it's one of those years in Lafayette, Lake Charles, the whole state. Yeah. This will be the 4th landfall.
That's crazy to me.
I know. So you guys ready for a snowstorm now?
Yeah, it's inevitable at this point, right?
Well, 2020, you know, December 31st can't come fast enough, right?
This is so true.
Okay, well, Paul BOUDREAUX, thanks for joining us. Biology teacher, we appreciate your teaching. And,
thank you.
And you're in the hybrid mode right now.
We're in hybrid, virtual. Half the kids come on one day, the other half come the next day. You know, we're making the best out of what we have. It's what we do.
Let's hope we can get through all this, and 2021 has to be a better year.
It has to be great.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Dr. Knabb, you'll concur that 2021 has to be a better year. Fortunately, we've had a tough hurricane season, but it is pushing mid-October, so eventually things have to back off, but we still have Delta ahead of us, and we could still have another landfall. That's not out of the question before we get into November.
Yeah, about to have our 5th hurricane landfall this year here in the United States. So we're going to cover each one like it's the most important one, because it is. We're facing this right now. Stay with us.
I've seen it plenty of times, not only with hurricanes, but see that a lot of times after tornado outbreaks that just take out whole streets and whole neighborhoods, and they rebuild, they come back, and you know, in some ways they're better for it because they've been through this before. It makes you a stronger person, hoping that they don't have to see another tornado or another hurricane. But here we go again, and this one too will have a rainfall component. Let's go to the radar right now because we have our first flash flood warning kind of associated with Hurricane Delta. And this is a flash flood warning over in parts of Louisiana, including the Baton Rouge area. Already we've had reports of up to 3 to 4 inches of rain in this area, or 2 to 3 inches of rain, expecting several more. This goes until 1 a.m. Central Time, and this includes Livingston Parish, where we also have part of that parish under a severe thunderstorm warning for about another 5 or 6 minutes until 15 after. Parts of the Baton Rouge area, and also East Feliciana Parish. So the flash flood warning is up. we'll have additional flash flood warnings. We're expecting some of these areas, not only there, but all the way back to Lake Charles and the Sabine Pass area. Right here in Lafayette, we could see 6, maybe 10 inches of rain. Now, these numbers will not be as high as we saw with Sally. The bottom line is Sally was crawling towards the coast at 2 to 3 miles an hour. This one's going to be moving much faster, and there's that direct proportion. If you cut the speed, the forward speed of the tropical storm or hurricane in half, you kind of double the rainfall. So they're concerned about rainfall. They're also concerned about wind, and we talked to some of the locals earlier and got their thoughts on their their concerns about what's ahead after Laura and now with Delta coming in to Lafayette.
I'm kind of just trying to stay positive during this time. I mean, I know last month with Hurricane Laura, it was pretty sudden. So I'm not too sure exactly what to expect in Breaux Bridge or even in the Scott Lafayette area. But I'm just kind of hoping for the best. And me and my family are going to be staying in our house in Breaux Bridge, hunkering down, and we're just going to wait it out.
Laura wasn't too bad, were you? We'll talk about that.
No, Laura wasn't too bad. We didn't get any flooding, really any damages to our houses or fences or anything like that. It did hit in the middle of the night, about 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning when I woke up and I saw the winds and all that, so that was pretty scary. So, yeah, I kind of stayed up for a little bit, but then I kind of ended up going back to bed. But we didn't have power for about 12 hours, so.
Hopefully not repeating that.
Right, yeah.
Your relatives all over the state?
So I actually have family that lives in Lake Charles. My cousin, she's actually pregnant and she's supposed to have her child this month. But they evacuated for Laura. But they had minimal damage to their house, but she, her husband, and her dog have been staying here in Scott, Louisiana.
We hope for the best over in Lake Charles, but again, they've got all the tarps up there. We've got more wind coming in, hurricane force wind gusts, not as strong as we have with Laura. Remember, those gusts are up over 100, 130, 135 miles an hour. It's not going to be that strong, but still, we've already got the damage. We have the debris on the ground. And we mentioned the risk of heavy rainfall. That's a concern, 6 to 10 inches of rain in some of these areas. And along with the wind, that could uproot trees, and power outages, another big threat. Not only here in Lafayette, but all the way to Lake Charles, up to Alexandria, where they're under a hurricane warning that far inland. I was in Alexandria the morning after Laura hit Lake Charles, and we had gusts to 86 miles an hour. The difference with this, as versus Laura, Delta comes in, it should be weakening, not strengthening. It's also moving faster, and it's going to be coming in about 5 or 6 hours earlier. So when it makes landfall, it will be likely daylight versus with Justin, with Laura, it came in after dark and really ravaged right through Lake Charles. What was it, about midnight, 1, 2 in the morning?
Yeah, Mike, and I'll tell you what, you talked about that wind hitting, and we know it's going to hit, and also the power outages. Very proposition, Mike.